Hello, good evening. It's our pleasure to welcome you to another edition of BOI Impact that will be highlighting some of the best moments at the recently held 2017 edition of the Chief Executive Officers Forum of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions, AADFI, that was hosted by the Bank of Industry in Abuja, Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. I am Hadiza Olaoshibikon. Tonight's program will further highlight plenary sessions at the event. The first plenary session was on DFIs and sustainable development financing in a changing environment, challenges and expectations, which was delivered by the CEO, European Organization for Sustainable Development, Germany. Financing Africa's integration, that was also delivered by the African Finance Corporation, AFC President and Chief Executive Officer, and also the presentation on good corporate governance and its relevance in enhancing development finance institutions' efficiency by Dr. Larry Osafiana, the Pioneer Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of BOI. The last segment, which is also the concluding part of the program, will feature the closing ceremony, tour of some BOI-supported projects in Abuja, as well as a parting dinner for delegates. Here are highlights of these interesting sessions. Don't go away. The first presentation of the day was on DFIs and sustainable development financing in a changing environment, its challenges and expectations, delivered by the CEO of European Organization for Sustainable Development of Germany, Mr. Ashar Rapp.
What do we do in terms of innovation and policy intervention? So here, let us reimagine how the DFIs could run in the 21st century. Number one, I think governance and management has to change and change radically. Let's just start from the very top, the Board of Governors. Traditionally, the DFI would go and hire, of course, outsiders also like lawyers and financial auditors to be on the board so that you have that expertise and they can guide the management and the staff better. True. Today, you need to probably expand a little bit or include the newcomers, include disruptors, include those who have understanding of what is happening right now around the world in terms of the age of disruption that we are in, and I call it big bang disruption that is taking place. To have somebody like that on your board, have somebody like that who also understands the social changes that are happening. What are the needs of the society? You know, what are the social impacts of whatever you do? And whatever you do, you want to do it good for a good purpose. So is that the purpose being served by the instruments that you have, or what other instruments that are needed to achieve that? So you need expertise in terms of social and environmental impact of what you're doing. So people like that having in the governance structure would, I believe, would be very, very helpful for, you know, steering DFIs out of the current situation. And then management, of course, and the governance job, of course, should also be to allow that innovation happens within DFIs. Because if you want to be the leaders, you know, lead by example in the market, you have to start at home in your own building. Start to innovate yourself before you expect your clients to innovate. Be sustainable yourself, of course, before you expect your clients to be sustainable. So the idea here is to create the culture of innovation in the DFIs, which I believe is lacking. If you want an innovation economy which is must for survival, also for Africa, it will not happen in a vacuum. You need to have the ecosystem. And then, of course, you need new cooperation model. And I think one should stop looking commercial banks or incumbent institutions or newcomers as competitors, but as partners. And I think together you can serve that purpose. And then create the financial market development, including alternative finance business. Embrace the change that is coming. Use it to your benefit to serve your mandate. There is a lot we can share, but the time is running out. I would like to thank everybody. Thank you so much.
The presentation on financing Africa's integration was delivered by the President and CEO of African Finance Corporation, Mr. Andrew Ali.
I just want to share some thoughts around financing African integration, because I do believe that there is, despite the difficulties, there is an opportunity here, particularly for those of us who work on the large-scale end of financing in infrastructure and areas like that. Because really, to get the full benefits of infrastructure, you need large economies of scale, and often to be able to get that, you need some form of integration or cross-border projects. But you also need to find a way of encouraging competition on top of that state intervention. And then railway projects need huge amounts of funding, typically several $billion for a decent railway system. And we've seen that this is something that a lot of the international financial institutions are reluctant to finance, typically because of the fact that the capital expenditure is so high, therefore the returns tend to be low, which is why you also need the government support. I would really love to see much more integration between the different regional blocks. So again, this is, I think, something that has been complained about many times, but if you have a Nigerian passport, you need far more visas to go to African countries than if you have, say, a British passport. And obviously this very simple, being able to just go get on a plane and follow a business opportunity, I think is the most basic form of economic integration. And I think trying to bring together some of the privileges that come from being in these regions and share them between regions, I think would be very important for moving that forward.
The paper on the relevance of good corporate governance and appropriate DFI regulations in enhancing DFI's efficiency was delivered by Dr. Larry Osafiana. His presentation proposed solutions to the challenges and expectations of DFI's key stakeholders.
Most DFIs do not engage in a lot of market activities. Okay. In fact, in the case of Nigeria, for example, they're even barred from doing that. Okay. Again, that essentially reduces the kind of risks, the types of risks that they deal with. And of course, thirdly, the primary risk is credit, okay, apart from operational risks. Okay. And these do not actually create a substantial potential for systemic risk. And then, finally, most regulatory authorities in Africa that are the vehicles through which the DFIs are owned by government. And so they wear three hats: of shareholder, of regulator, of supervisor. And if we're talking about corporate governance, there's a breach there, obviously. Okay? There's a fundamental breach there. And so I begin to ask myself whether the monetary authorities are the best agencies for supervising DFIs. Okay? Finally, because DFIs are supposed to have multiple bottom lines, I believe that external review of the activities should not be limited only to financial review. There's certainly a need for a formalized external review of their impact. It's important because it does a number of things. One, it ensures that there's focus. One of the primary goals of good corporate governance is essentially to ensure discipline, okay, within the operation of an organization. And there's no fundamental discipline than focus. Okay? So clearly, an external impact assessment review or assessment is a means to ensure that there's focus in the conduct of DFIs, and also allows for a periodic review of that mandate in terms of its relevance. And therefore, I urge all the people running the DFIs to recognize essentially from what their mission is. And if they understand that, make sure that they go and clearly define, as I said, to me, the mission is not just simply dispersing money. It goes beyond that. It is nurturing and developing and nurturing successful enterprises. And then, finally, far more resources are required, are needed, but the funds are there. But unfortunately, the landscape has changed. We are now, we, the DFIs, are in competition for that resource that's out there. And providers of capital have their demands. So if we want to be the beautiful bride to attract the financing, we have to prepare ourselves. And first we have to understand what is it that providers of capital require and ensure that we structure ourselves, okay, in such a way to meet that. You know, and we don't need to go too far. The evidence is clear. There are a lot of private sector DFIs that are operating, and they are not short of money. They are getting money. And we can learn from there. What makes them unique? That they are the preferred vehicles for these funds. And we can learn from them. And I can say clearly, governance is very, very fundamental. And that is what drives the need for the transformation that essentially will make it possible to increase the capacity of DFIs to attract capital. Thank you very much.
After all the presentations, deliberations, and recommendations, the report and result of the 2017 peer review and rating of African DFIs with Prudential Standard Guidelines and Rating System was presented to the delegates.
The PSGRS mechanism is directed at assessing DFIs in the following 3 key areas: governance standards, financial and prudential standards, and operational standards. The aim of the mechanism was to help DFIs identify their areas of weaknesses with a view to applying corrective measures to address identified weaknesses, thereby ensuring that African DFIs operate under international best practices. The PSGRS has been revised following the procedure stipulated by the AADFI General Assembly and is being unveiled today, which is the assignment which we are going to perform now. So we can now go ahead and unveil the document. Thank you.
As we draw to a close, I just want to make a recognition of a few points. I think you'll all agree with me that there is power in unity, because we came together in the last few days and we discussed pertinent issues talking to development. AADFI is going to produce a report for these deliberations through our secretariat, and it will be circulated accordingly to all participants through our website. And that should then help all of us as we move on with our respective responsibilities insofar as development finance is concerned. I don't know for you, but for me, a lot of answers have been provided to the questions that I had. And as I go back home, I will continue to reflect on this and continue to look at what is it that I can improve? What is it that the impact that I can make? Now, as I conclude, I want to make special reference to the bank and all its structures for the good work that has been done in hosting this gathering.
This is a platform for appreciation of the student. Yes, sir.
I hope you enjoyed all the presentations as well as the panel discussions on good corporate governance and its relevance in enhancing DFI's efficiency by Dr. Larry Osafiana. After the closing ceremony, the delegates were taken round town, during which they visited 2 industries supported by the Bank of Industry in the Federal Capital Territory.
Nice to meet you. Mr. He's the Association of African Development Finance Institutions.
Yes.
He's the chairman.
Welcome. We do housing, we do agricultural packaging, we do 3D artwork, and we do insulation panels as well. And we do everything from scratch. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to import 2 raw materials. That is the galvanized wire and the polystyrene bead. Okay. But we know that right now there's a refinery being built in Lagos to be able to give us the byproduct, which is the polystyrene. Okay. And we have several steel mills in Nigeria. Now, the wire is of a particular tensile strength, and we receive it in coils. Now, this is our steel line. Now, this building has been here now for 4 years. Yeah. It's a showroom piece because when we take people into the factory, and we're just showing them wire with somebody putting the wire on some polystyrene, they call it so-so in the north. They say these people are crazy, they are building with foam. But let me explain to you. A block is hollow in the middle. It's air, right? Yeah. Now, instead of the air in the middle, you have this insulating material that acts as a formwork to receive the concrete. Then you have all this iron. And the strength of this iron is the same as an 8 mm iron rod. These little wires, so it is 10 times stronger than a traditionally built building. In fact, these buildings, by the time we spray, they are bulletproof buildings. But by the time you put this building up like this, you see no pillar because the walls, with all this reinforcement and concrete, becomes a load-bearing wall. And I can build like this: ground floor, first floor, second floor, without pillars. This is not a beam. This is just a panel that is standing here that is being sprayed. Please come in. Now, take note that the windows are closed. Okay. Look at the difference. Yes.
But you never know you get it's concrete.
There will be no crack. No crack. The biggest problem we have is convincing people that we are not foam. That's the biggest problem we have. I'm trying to get people to understand that this foam can become stronger than a normal house. That's the biggest challenge that we have.
What about the cost of implication? Cost,
compared to the traditional.
Compared to this, what is the cost of implication?
It is for the carcass, because notice that the paint is the same, the lighting is the same, the windows are the same, the floor is the same, the electrical and mechanical is the same. For the panel cost, it is 40% cheaper than traditional building. Given the weight of the walls is so much lighter that you save 30% of the foundation cost. Wow. But a lot of the time, when we tell people, they are still building traditional foundations.
Yeah.
You can just build a foundation like a generator base and put up this house, and that's the end. Yeah. So we're still teaching people about what we're doing.
That was a brief visit to BOI's project at Idu Industrial Park in Abuja. Thereafter, delegates were given the usual Nigerian hospitable treatment, the African-themed gala night dinner, which was full of glitz, glamour, and lots to eat and drink. Enjoy the moment.
tonight is not a night of making long speeches. Otherwise, it will just be one of the other sessions we have had, during the day. So my speech is very short. To say welcome, welcome, and welcome. And please make sure that you enjoy yourself tonight. Make new friends. Nigerians are very friendly. Many of you came for the very first time. I'm sure it's not going to be your last time. Thank you for coming and have a good evening.
I believe I'm talking and I'm speaking on behalf of all our colleagues from outside Nigeria that up to now, and we have received one of the best hospitality that we have seen. It's been a long night, but an exciting night. Thank you very much to the people of Nigeria. Thank you very much to BOI. It's most appreciated from the deepest part of our hearts. I thank you very much.
Like they say, whatever has a beginning must surely have an end. Those were the highlights of the closing ceremony of the 2017 Chief Executive Officers Forum of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions, AADFI, hosted by the Bank of Industry. Although the AADFI CEO Forum may have come and gone, but the papers and lessons therein delivered by exceptional resource persons from all over the world will go a long way in shaping the way DFIs operate in Africa. And in subsequent editions of the program, we shall bring you some of the recommendations arising thereof from the 3-day forum. It's on this note that we'll wrap up this week's edition of the program. It's good evening and have yourself an enterprising week. I am Hadiza Olaoshibikon. Bye for now.